Hello guys. My name is Gladys Hernandez. In this occasion, I'm gonna explain you the topic hypothetical situations. Every day we ask ourselves questions many times without meaning or without waiting for some explanation. For example, questions like, what would you do if you were president? Or if the world were to end in a month, what would you do? Or what would happen if the earth had no sun? This type of questions are hypothetical situations. Now let's learn a little about this subject. Hypothetical situations. Hypothetical situations are situations that we can imagine everything. There are specific English grammar structures, phrases, and forms to express hypothetical situations. For example, in English uses conditional forms to express hypothetical situations. If only this kind of conditional form that in this form is used as a means of stressing the importance of the hypothetical situations. For example, if they have time, they will come to the meeting. You have a conditional form, but like a hypothetical situation because you can imagine everything. The second example is that if Jack had taken the job, they wouldn't have been satisfied. This is other that hypothetical situation use the conditional forms. The other form is often also used with an exclamation point. An exclamation point. In this kind of form, uh, for example, if only there were more job opportunities, or you say that like exclamation, but you have to use the hypothetical situation because you have to imagine everything that would happen. The other question can be, or the other sentence, I'm sorry, can be if only the boss would listen to my proposals. For example, the other sentences, other example can be if only Susan wouldn't spend so much time online. It's like you say that you use a hypothetical situation, but in form of exclamation point that you have admired about that you say. The other example can be if only Jeff would consider Hayden better. He's the perfect person for the job. This kind of examples can be like a hypothetical situation. The other form is it's time. You have to use it's time with the past simple to talk about an action which finally is taking place or should take place soon. It always refers to an action or state that should have taken place before the moment of speaking. For example, it's time you begin working, or other example can be that it's time we change to a new internet server provider. In this form, you can use variation of on its time. For example, it's about you can also here are some common variations on its time which have the same meaning. For example, it's about time or it's high time. The other the other form that we can use hypothetical situation is would rather. But to use would rather, three you have two uses of would rather to express hypothetical situation. For example, the would rather plus base form of the verb. You have to use would rather plus the base form of the verb to talk about our preference in the present or in the future. For example, he'd rather his employees work less overtime. And the other example can be "I'd rather live now." For example, in each of these cases, the phrase with "would rather" shows that another action is taking a place than the preferred action of the subject of the sentences. The other kind that you have to use would rather is would rather plus past perfect. Use would rather plus past perfect to express hypothetical situation in past. For example, they'd rather they hadn't spent so much on the marketing campaign. Okay, now we're gonna make some exercise about the topic hypothetical situation. Use the different forms that we learned today. For example, using conditional form. We're gonna make a little second for that you think in a sentences. For example, but this kind of form. I have an exercise. For example, they would invest in R&D if they have the capital. In this case you can see that you have the conditional form using conditionals. For example, if they had, you have to use if they had. You have to see this. For example, the other exercise is if Susan wouldn't spend so much time online. In this case, the conditional form is if Susan wouldn't spend. You can see the auxiliary if. The other is an exclamation point. In this case, you have to make sentences using an exclamation point, but you have to remember that is in hypothetical situations. For example, any exercise can be if only Mary could work for us. You have to exclamation something. You have to remark it, if only Mary could. The other the other exercise that is use the form is time. For example, this exercise can be it's time we change to a new internet service provider. In this case, you have to use it's time because it's time. You have to use a like a hypothetical situation in present or in future. You have to remember that. And then the would rather plus base form of the verb. In this case, we have Jack would rather take a different approach. You have to use would rather plus the verb plus the base form of the verb. In this case, take. And in the other and the end, the finish, would rather plus past perfect. Mary would rather she had chosen a different position. In this case, it's would rather plus past perfect. That is, she had chosen a different position. You have to remember this kind of hypothetical situation because it is normally that you have question every day like this and that I like to say. For example, like I say at the beginning, what would you do if you were president? These questions many people like without meaning or without waiting for some explanation. Thanks for your attention. You're welcome and at the next occasion. Bye.